Imagine standing in the center of a barren canyon, surrounded by towering cliffs of red sandstone. The sun beats down with relentless ferocity, baking the earth until it cracks. There is no river here. There is no lake. In the summer, the heat is enough to kill a human being in a matter of hours, and the nearest reliable water source is miles away across unforgiving terrain. By all laws of nature, this place should be a graveyard. Yet, 2,000 years ago, this scorched wasteland was a thriving metropolis, a garden oasis that was home to 30,000 people. It boasted swimming pools, fountains, and lush gardens in the middle of one of the driest deserts on Earth. This is Petra. But how is this possible? How did a civilization not only survive but become fabulously wealthy in a landscape designed to extinguish life? The answer lies hidden beneath the dust, in a technological mastery that rivaled Rome itself. It was not magic, and it was not luck. It was a desperate, brilliant battle against nature itself. To understand how this impossible city came to be, we must first look at the architects of this miracle, the Nabateans. History often overlooks them, casting them as simple nomads wandering the Arabian sands. But the Nabateans were far more than wanderers. They were masters of the trade routes, controlling the flow of frankincense and myrrh, commodities more valuable than gold in the ancient world. But wealth is useless if you are dead of thirst. Why did they choose this rugged, dry canyon as their capital? The location offered a natural fortress, protected by narrow gorges and sheer cliffs, making it nearly impregnable to invading armies. However, this safety came with a deadly price tag, a total lack of water, or so it seemed. The Nabateans understood something that their enemies did not. They knew that in the desert, water does not always flow. Sometimes it crashes. The paradox of the Jordanian desert is that its greatest danger is not always drought, but drowning. During the winter months, sudden, violent storms can dump inches of rain onto the hard, baked earth in minutes. Because the ground is too hard to absorb the water, it cascades off the cliffs, forming flash flood with the power of a freight train. For an unprepared settlement, these floods are catastrophic, capable of wiping out entire villages. But the Nabateans saw an opportunity. They didn't just want to survive the floods, they wanted to harvest them. They began a construction project of massive scale, not to build temples, but to reshape the hydrology of the entire region. This brings us to the first great question of Petra's existence. How do you catch a flash flood without being destroyed by it? The answer is carved into the very rocks you walk past today. Before the water could even reach the city center, the Nabateans intercepted it. They constructed a vast, interconnected network of dams, diversions, and barriers in surrounding hills. This was not a single barrier, but a complex system designed to break the water's terrifying speed. By slowing the deluge, they could direct it. They carved a tunnel, nearly 90 meters long, through solid rock to divert the raging waters of the Wadi Musa away from the narrow entrance of the Sik, the canyon that leads into the city. This engineering feat, known today as the Dark Tunnel, ensured that the city's main entrance would never flood, keeping trade routes open and the people safe. But diverting the water was only the first step. They had to store it for the scorching summer months that lay ahead. Beneath the feet of the thousands of tourists who visit Petra today lies a hidden city, a city of water. The Nabateans carved hundreds of cisterns into bedrock, sealing them with waterproof plaster made from lime and olive oil pulp. This plaster was so effective that many of these cisterns are still watertight 2 millennia later. These underground tanks were not mere puddles. They were massive reservoirs capable of holding millions of liters of water. By keeping the water underground, they solved the problem of evaporation, ensuring that every drop captured from the winter rains was preserved for the dry season. But storage is only useful if you can move the water to where it is needed. How did they transport this life-giving resource across a sprawling city built on uneven, rocky terrain? This is where Nabatean engineering begins to look startlingly modern. They didn't just dig ditches. They created a pressurized pipeline system. Utilizing terracotta pipes, they created a continuous flow of fresh water throughout the city. Archaeological evidence reveals that these pipes were designed with precise gradients. They understood the principles of hydraulics. If the water flowed too fast, the pipes would burst, too slow, and sediment would clog the lines. To manage this, they installed settling basins along the route. Ancient filtration systems where particles could sink to the bottom, ensuring that the water reaching the city center was clean and drinkable. They even utilized the concept of the inverted siphon to move water across valleys and up hills, defying gravity through sheer mathematical precision. With his mastery over water, Petra transformed. It became a stopping point that no trader could ignore. Caravans traveling the incense route, weary and dehydrated, would arrive at Petra to find a miracle. The Nabateans taxed them for water, selling survival at a premium. The water became their currency, funding the breathtaking architecture we see today. The treasury, the monastery, the royal tombs, all were paid for by the mastery of hydrology. They built the Paradisos, a massive garden complex with a swimming pool larger than an Olympic venue, right in the city center. This was a supreme display of power. In a place where water meant life, using it for decoration was the ultimate flex of authority. It sent a message to Rome, to Egypt, and to every trader passing through. We do not just survive the desert, we rule it. But history tells us that no empire lasts forever. Why did this masterpiece of engineering eventually fail? It wasn't because the technology broke, but because the world changed. The Romans annexed Petra in 106 AD, and while the city continued to flourish for a time, the trade routes eventually shifted. Sea routes began to replace the arduous overland treks, bypassing Petra entirely. The city's economic lifeline was severed. Then came the earthquakes. A massive tremor in 363 AD devastated the city, destroying many of the vital water systems. Without the wealth of trade to fund the constant, expensive maintenance required to keep the dams and pipes in working order, the system began to crumble. The reservoirs filled with silt, the dams breached, and the desert slowly began to reclaim its territory. The people drifted away. The fountains ran dry. The gardens withered and turned back to dust. By the time the Swiss explorer Johann Ludwig Burckhardt rediscovered the city for the Western world in 1812, Petra was a ghost town, inhabited only by local Bedouin tribes who still used the ancient cisterns to survive. The city had fallen silent, but the stone remained. Today, as we walk through the sick and gaze up at the treasury, we are not just looking at a beautiful tomb. We are looking at a monument to human resilience. We are witnessing the remnants of civilization that dare to challenge the impossible. The story of Petra is a reminder that civilization is fragile. It relies on the delicate balance between human ingenuity and the forces of nature. The Nabateans proved that with enough knowledge, we can thrive in the most hostile environments on Earth. But they also prove that when we lose the ability to maintain our infrastructure, even the greatest cities can vanish into the sand. As we look at the dry channels and broken pipes today, we have to wonder what other secrets lie buried beneath the red dust. Archaeologists estimate that nearly 85% of Petra is still underground, untouched and unseen. What other engineering marvels are waiting to be found? If you were to walk the sick today, knowing what you know now about the water that once flowed there, how would it change your perspective on this ancient wonder? We invite you to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Specifically, we'd love to hear your take. Do you think the decline of Petra was inevitable due to the shifting trade routes, or could the city have survived if the water systems had been maintained? Let's discuss the legacy of the Nabateans together. With the external threat of floods neutralized, the Nabateans turned their attention to the internal challenge: storage. In the desert, rain is a fleeting event, but thirst is permanent. Survival depended on the ability to capture the abundance of winter and preserve it for brutality of summer. To do this, they turned the mountains themselves into a sponge. If you look closely at the cliff faces surrounding Petra today, you will see thin lines carved into the rock, spiraling down the mountains like veins. These are runoff channels, kilometers of them, hand-carved to catch every single drop of rain that hit the mountain peaks. These channels didn't just dump water into the street. They fed into a massive, invisible network of underground cisterns. Archaeologists have mapped hundreds of these subterranean tanks. Some are small, private reservoirs for individual homes, while others are cavernous public works capable of holding enough water to fill a modern Olympic swimming pool. But carving a hole in sandstone is not enough. Sandstone is porous. Water seeps right through it. To solve this, the Nabateans developed proprietary chemical technology, a waterproof plaster. By mixing lime with ash and, crucially, the pulp of olive oil, they created a mortar that was completely impermeable. They lined the interior of every cistern with this mixture. It was so durable that even today, 2,000 years later, you can still find patches of this plaster clinging to the rock walls, smooth and hard as ceramic. This technology transformed Petra into a massive battery, storing hydrological energy underground, shielded from evaporating heat of the sun. However, storage is useless if you cannot move the resource to where it is needed. This is where the engineering of Petra makes a quantum leap, moving from simple survival to sophisticated urban planning. They didn't just want water. They wanted clean water delivered under pressure. Excavations have revealed thousands of segments of terracotta piping. These were not crude, open ditches. These were ceramic, interlocking pipes, designed to fit together with a watertight seal. By enclosing the water, they protected it from dust, animal waste, and evaporation. But the true genius lies in the mathematics. The terrain of Petra is rugged, full of steep drops and valleys. If you simply let water fall down a steep slope in a sealed pipe, the pressure buildup at the bottom will shatter the clay. The Nabateans understood hydraulic pressure. To counteract this, they engineered the gradient of the pipes with astonishing precision. Over a distance of kilometers, the pipes descend at a calculated angle of just a few degrees, steep enough to keep the water moving, but shallow enough to keep the pressure manageable. In areas where the water had to drop significantly, they utilized tumbling basins, small stone tanks that acted as shock absorbers, resetting the water's velocity before sending it into the next section of pipe. This suggests a level of mathematical understanding that rivals the engineering of Rome or Greece. But there was another problem to solve. Flash floodwater is dirty. It is a slurry of mud, sand, and debris. You cannot drink it, and if you put it into a small pipe, the sediment will clog the system in days. How did they filter millions of liters of water without modern machinery? The answer lay in the design of the system itself. Along the aqueducts and pipeline routes, the Nabateans installed settling basins. These were rectangular stone tanks where the water flow would briefly slow down. Physics did the rest. The heavier particles of sand and gravel would sink to the bottom of the tank, while the clearer water flowed out over the top lip into the next section of the pipe. It was a gravity-powered filtration plant. Teams of maintenance workers would have been responsible for periodically dredging these basins, ensuring the arteries of the city remained unclogged. This obsessive management of water allowed for a clear stratification of usage. The pure, filtered water from the high springs was piped directly to public fountains and drinking reservoirs. The gray water, runoff collected from the streets or overflow from the dams, was directed to irrigation channels to water the crops and feed the animals. Nothing was wasted. Every drop had a purpose. With the basics of survival mastered, the Nabateans did something extraordinary. They began to show off. In the ancient world, power was usually demonstrated through military might or massive walls. In the desert, power is demonstrated through water. In the center of the city, near the Great Temple, archaeologists have uncovered the remains of a massive garden complex known as the Paradisos. Here, in a place where water was more precious than blood, they built a swimming pool. It was colossal, 43 meters wide, deep enough to swim in, with an island pavilion in the center. Surrounding it were manicured gardens featuring trees and flowers that had no business growing in a desert. To a visiting trader arriving from the dusty, parched caravan routes, this sight would have been psychologically overwhelming. It was a shock and awe tactic. It said, We have so much water, we can afford to waste it on decoration. The pool was not just a luxury, it was a political statement. It signaled to the empires of Rome and Egypt that the Nabateans were not merely scraping by. They had conquered the environment. They had turned the desert into a paradise. This mastery brought them unimaginable wealth, as Petra became the inescapable hub of the ancient economy. But as we know, even the greatest mastery cannot hold back the tide of history forever. For centuries, Petra stood as a testament to human will. It was a cosmopolitan hub where Roman generals rubbed shoulders with Arab merchants, all sustained by the artificial lifeline of the hydraulic network. But civilization is fragile. It relies on a delicate web of economics, stability, and maintenance. When one thread snaps, the whole web can unravel. For Petra, the end did not come from an invading army or a plague. It came from a shift in the wind and a rumble in the earth. In 106 AD, the Roman Empire formally annexed the Nabatean kingdom, while Petra continued to flourish for a time as a provincial capital. The geopolitics of the world were changing. The Romans began to favor the Red Sea maritime routes for trade. Ships could carry more cargo than camels and could bypass the arduous overland taxes of the desert cities. Slowly, the river of gold that flowed into Petra began to dry up. This economic decline was fatal because the Nabatean water system had one critical weakness. It required constant, expensive maintenance. Those thousands of kilometers of pipes, the settling basins, the dams, they all needed a workforce to clean, repair, and manage them. Without the vast wealth of the spice trade, the city could no longer afford the specialized labor required to keep the desert at bay. Then, nature delivered the final blow. In the early morning of May 19th, 363 AD, a massive earthquake struck the region. The ground convulsed, shattering the magnificent facades and toppling the freestanding temples. But the most devastating damage was invisible. Underground, the terracotta pipes cracked. The waterproof plaster of the cisterns fractured. The delicate gradients that kept the water flowing were disrupted. In a matter of minutes, the arteries of the city were severed. With a crippled economy, the people of Petra could not muster the resources to rebuild a complex infrastructure. The dams were left unrepaired. The next winter floods, no longer tamed by engineering, likely smashed through the weakened barriers, filling the city with mud and debris. Over the following centuries, the population slowly drifted away. The fountains ran dry. The swimming pool of the Paradisos was buried under drifting sand. The city that had once defied the desert was slowly reclaimed by it. By the time the Islamic conquest swept through the region in the 7th century, Petra was largely abandoned, known only to the local Bedouin tribes who continued to use the remaining cisterns to survive, guarding the secret of the Rose City from the outside world for another 1,000 years. When the Swiss explorer Johann Ludwig Burckhardt tricked his way into the site in 1812, revealing Petra to the Western world, he saw ruins. But today, looking back through the lens of science and engineering, we see something far more significant. We see a warning and a lesson. The Nabateans proved that humanity can adapt to almost any environment. They didn't fight the desert. They understood it. They treated water with a reverence that we, in our modern world of easy abundance, have largely forgotten. They captured every drop, recycled every liter, and built their entire society around the sustainable management of a scarce resource. In an era where climate change is accelerating, where water scarcity is becoming a global crisis, and where our own modern cities face the threat of extreme weather, the ghosts of Petra are speaking to us. They tell us that infrastructure is the backbone of civilization. They show us that ingenuity can buy us time, but sustainability requires vigilance. The engineering of Petra didn't fail because the technology was bad. It failed because the society supporting it lost its focus. The pipes are still there, buried in the sand, waiting to be studied, reminding us that water is not just a commodity, it is life itself. As the sun sets over the monastery, casting long shadows across the red rocks, Petra returns to silence. It remains one of the world's most breathtaking graveyards, a monument to a time when engineers were kings. We have only scratched the surface of this desert marvel. Archaeologists estimate that nearly 85% of the city is still buried underground, untouched. What other hydraulic secrets are waiting in the dark? What other lessons do the Nabateans leave for us? We want to hear from you. Do you believe the collapse of Petra was inevitable due to the economic shift? Or do you think the city could have survived the earthquake if they had prioritized to repair the water systems? What does the story of Petra teach us about our own modern water crisis? If you enjoyed this deep dive into history's greatest engineering feats, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more documentaries uncovering the lost technologies of the ancient world. Leave your thoughts and theories in the comments below. Let's keep the conversation flowing.